Georgia's election season is not quite over yet, it does appear. We are continuing our coverage of Georgia's historic 2022 midterms here at the Atlanta News First digital streaming desk, and we are joined this morning by Billy Michael Honor, who is the organizing director for the New Georgia Project Action Fund, a group that has deep ties to former gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. But Billy, just starting off this morning, it does seem that a runoff between Democratic incumbent U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker is imminent. The last numbers we saw were at both candidates at the 48 to 49% margin, neither enough at the moment to capture a 50+1 majority. Tell me your reactions. Your organization was obviously very invested and supportive of Senator Warnock. How are you feeling this morning?
Because when we look at the results, what we see is historic turnout in these midterms with the voters who we work the most with. So those are Black voters and Black communities turned out in just big numbers. And so that's the first thing I'm excited about is the civic participation. Definitely looking at what's happening in the US Senate race, very, very glad that people turned out and wanted to make sure that they let their voice be heard about who will represent them in the US Senate. And it does seem like that'll go to a runoff. Many of us all year who do this work, we're preparing for that very likely occurrence, given that there was a third party in the race along with Walker and Warnock. And so last I checked, almost, just under 100,000 votes that third party candidate got. And so that's a lot in a state like ours now where statewide elections are close. But I will say that when you look at the places left where we're waiting to get the results to come in this last 4%, there's a chance that Warnock overperformed in those places, and that's why the race hasn't been called. And so we'll see.
In terms of if there is a runoff, obviously it all depends on which candidate gets their core base of supporters out. Historically, we do see a little bit of a voter drop off in runoffs. This is the second consecutive election cycle where we could see a Senate runoff. How does your group and how does Senator Warnock's supporters encourage their folks to turn out on December 6th?
Well, listen, I'm not going to play like it's not going to be a heavy lift. Everybody's tired. We live in a state in Georgia where we ask Georgians to vote a lot, actually, comparatively. And so we are in a little election fatigue. I'm sure that's true for most people, but we got a job to do. And what we're going to say to people is the same thing we said 2 years ago when there was a runoff around this exact same seat, and that was finish the job, right? Show up, be counted. It's important. Let's do it. It's going to be tough for all of us. We don't want it to ruin our Thanksgiving having to do with this, but here we are. We're going to have to deal with it, and we're going to be okay on the other side. And the last thing I'll say on this is that I think voters understand also that if it does go to a runoff, the spotlight of the country will be on Georgia. And that in and of itself actually becomes inspiring for people when they see that our voice not only affects what happens in our state, but our vote and our voice affects what happens in our country and the decisions that get made. And people actually want to stand up and say, "Hey, we want to send a message to the rest of the country." I think that'll be a motivating factor in the runoff if it comes to that.
Senator Warnock's campaign told me many times that they knew that this race was going to be close. And yet, with a lot of the attacks that flew back and forth between both camps, are you surprised that an incumbent senator like Senator Warnock is in a runoff with a Republican who has never even sought high or political office of any kind before? Are you surprised that this race did turn out or is turning out to be this close?
Oh, no, not at all, because I live in a country and so do you, where we elected Donald Trump to be president. And so just about anything is politically possible now. um, and I say that jokingly, but also that's actually how I feel that politically, a lot of the conventional wisdom that we exercise in matters like these for a long time in politics is no longer the case. We live in a very divided country, and the country is divided along a lot of what you might call ratio political lines and identity politics, which influence a lot of how it is that people show up to the ballot box and vote. And it doesn't always line up with who is the most quality candidates, right? It lines up with candidates that they feel are most in alignment with whatever it is are their interests in their particular group, whatever that may be. And so I'm not surprised when poor quality candidates end up doing well in elections.
What are some of the things that the New Georgia Project and the Action Fund are going to be doing between now and December 6th? We have a compressed runoff specification under Georgia's new voting voting laws. I believe the last runoff 2 years ago stretched over Christmas and into the new year. Now is some might say fortunately or mercifully. Other people might say that it needs to be a little bit longer. But we have really just a month between now and a potential runoff. What are some of the things your group is going to be doing in terms of organizing and really organizing voter turnout?
Yeah, we've been saying for us, we got a 21-day sort of calendar here that we're working on. And so those are going to be 21 packed days of doing all the things that we've always done, and that is direct voter contact, right? We know based upon our research and everything that we can see, based upon the tactics that we exercise out in the field, that there is no substitute for direct voter contact, going, knocking doors, having conversations with the voters who are oftentimes overlooked by the polls. We call them high opportunity voters. That's the people who are mostly called unlikely voters. Those are the folks who we go and we talk to because they're the ones who shock the system because no one's expecting them to show up. So we're going to be talking to them over these 21 days, knocking doors, sending text message, having phone calls, doing all the things. Our organizers who organize around issues that people care about will be putting up actions in communities that connect to people. So we're going to be doing what we've always done, what we've done this year to knock over 2 million doors, to get 150,000 Black and brown and other folks to fill out our voter pledge card. We're going to be back in tow for 21 days until the clock runs out.
Your organization, the New Georgia Project, was obviously founded by Stacey Abrams, and we're talking about the Senate runoff, but I have to ask you your reactions to the other nationally watched high-profile race yesterday. Stacey Abrams falls short in her second bid to become the nation's first African-American female governor in history. What is her political future? Does she run again in 26? Does she seek election back to the state house or state senate? What is her future in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I think it'll be like last time when she fell short in 2018. She took some time to sit with herself and do some introspection and think about what was next. And the result of that were two great organizations, Fair Fight and Fair Count, one working for fair elections in our country, the other working for a fair census counting. That were birthed from her sitting there and thinking about what needed to be next for her. Those organizations have gone on to have a very strong impact on our country and on the civic moments that we've experienced the last 2 years, and so 4 years rather. And I can only imagine that she'll do the same this time. But for me, I'm more concerned about the voters who placed their votes for Leader Abrams and where they go from here. That's what I'm going to be interested in, and I'm going to be wanting to be a part of the many organizers around the state who are going to want to be in conversation with them about what their political aspirations, dreams that they want to see from here, given that the candidate they've supported, some of them for several years now. To be the executive is not going to be that right now, and so now but their political aspirations and the things they want to see don't end, and so we're going to try to provide space for them to be able to organize for the Georgia that they want to see.
And just talking about the number of voters who turned out, former Democratic State Senator Jen Jordan, who was running for Attorney General, though I saw some numbers very recently that she may have been the Democratic Party's top vote getter in yesterday's election. We had a lot of the party's really youngest and brightest stars really running this year, from Stacey Abrams to Jen Jordan, Bee Nguyen, Secretary of State, Janice Laws Robinson, on one of the down ballot races. Eventually, for the Democratic Party to remain viable in Georgia, someone has got to actually start winning some statewide constitutional offices. How does your organization help them do that, and where do Democrats go from here?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm less concerned about Democrat, Big D, in terms of what they do. They're the DCCC, and whoever else gets to make those decisions will huddle and figure those things out. But to your question, in terms of my concerns, are the voters who do have Democratic expansion agendas. So that's Democrat with a small d, who want to see more people added to the process, who want to see immigrant rights, who want to see more election protections, who want to see more affordable housing, all those issues that bring people to the ballot booth and cast votes. A lot of times, yes, for the Democratic Party. I am interested in how it is we continue to build out infrastructure for those people, for those voters in the new American majority. And a lot of that has to do with us just recognizing that we have to have messages that resonate with people across the state, something that's said all the time. And I think it's gotten better, but the job isn't done, obviously. We just have to continue to get much better at turning out voters in places that aren't Metro Atlanta. And we do that, but we can do a better job at it. I mean, you look at Chatham and you see Richmond County. These are both places that for this cycle and the last major election didn't turn out in the ways in which we wanted them to, based upon the voters who were there. And so we have to just do more on the ground conversations, direct voter contact, finding out what's important in those areas, and making the issues and candidates who run, right, better resonate with those voters.
We're wrapping up our conversation with Billy Michael Honor, who is the organizing director for the New Georgia Project Action Fund. Final thoughts, runoff, yes or no, predictions, 21 days, Georgia remaining at the center once again of the nation's political universe. Final thoughts.
I think you said it well. My prediction is exactly what you just said is going to happen. It probably will be a runoff, and all eyes will be on Georgia. Georgia will be on everybody's mind again, and then we'll make that decision. And then after that, I'm going to be in the chorus of individuals who want us to go to ranked choice voting in our state and get rid of these runoffs, so that we have a speedier, more efficient, less expensive and taxing process on voters and organizing groups. But until then, we'll be on the ground through the runoff, trying to rally the vote.
And we will continue our coverage of this year's historic 2022 Georgia midterm elections. Thanks to Billy Michael Honor for joining us, and thanks to all of you for watching.